Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making professional chiropractor connections with Dr. Fred Schofield and Dr. FJ Schofield. If you guys could take some moments to just reflect on that moment that you guys decided you wanted to become chiropractors, where you were at in life, what was going on, what attracted you to this path.
Sure, yeah. My path was pretty hairy. Uh, my dad was a medical doctor. I was raised in South Africa, and I have a issue with my low back, but I didn't know. It's called Bertolotti's syndrome, and quite a lot of people have it. And I was playing professional rugby in Italy. I got kicked in the back. They sent me the whole route, all the different people and all painkillers and all that stuff, and nothing helped me. But a guy on the rugby team was a chiropractor, and he adjusted me and said, "I can help you." And he gave me one adjustment, and I never felt better in my life. And I said, "Wow, do you make a living doing that?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "I'm going to do that." And then I ran into a friend of ours who had just come back from the United States, and he said, "Freddie, it's time to get your life together. You're going to play rugby in America and you're going to become a chiropractor." And so that's what I did. And I'm eternally grateful for Dr. Steve Earlock and Dr. Roy McCullum. They were both, Steve's passed on now, but they had fabulous practices and just fantastic human beings, as most chiropractors are. That's my story.
And Dr. FJ, what was your story? Where were you at in life? Maybe talk about your upbringing and just at that moment in life that you were at when you decided this is what you were going to do.
Yeah, I was like 8 or 9, and we were on a family ski trip, and he had taken some pretty big falls and was hurting pretty good. And then I was the oldest kid, and he laid on his back and he's like, "You got to adjust me." And he took my hands and adjusted my mom and brother and sister, and then laid down and I adjusted him. And I was like, man, that seems like a pretty fun way to spend your day. And then just being your own boss, helping people. So I knew from then on, whatever it was, 8, 9, that I would always become a chiropractor. So a little unusual, but and then yeah, just being raised in it, the whole holistic, all natural lifestyle, inside out health, never questioning any of it. It was a blessing.
I'm wondering if you guys can take a few moments just to introduce the prospective student audience to chiropractic. How would you contextualize this path for them? How would you describe what chiropractic is? Some things that are unique and distinct about the profession, about the philosophy?
Yeah. Well, you can help people with your hands. You don't need anything else, which is, and you can influence the nervous system. I see people go to neurologists all the time, and it's like they're going to, and there's a place for it. I'm not saying that, but they're going to maybe give you a drug, maybe send you out for surgery. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to be able to permanently alter neurologic function. And so chiropractic is so unique in that way, and really is, I think, at the forefront of just natural holistic health. And that's why the philosophy is just so gigantic, that belief in inside out. Because without that, you crumble, really.
Well, the greatest thing, I didn't get chiropractic in the beginning. I felt different, but most people like me who are medical, you don't get it until you experience it. If you experience this thing and you feel that release after 22 years of back pain, you know what got to me? What really got to me was they sent me at 14 years old to a cardiologist for something. All I could have gone was to a chiropractor. And by the way, he was upper cervical. He adjusted me in my atlas up here, for those that don't know, up here. And the release happened. But chiropractic, the principle is the most important. The principle of chiropractic is there's a universal intelligence. There is a concept. We all have our nose in the middle of our face. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet, there is a certain design to this body of ours. And when that design is distorted, and we have three different types of design. We have structural design. So your foundation of your home is important. Because if that foundation is off by 1 degree, we're not landing on the moon.
House to a spaceship.
Well, if it's a
it.
distortion in the design, then the rest follows. And we have a concept for that. We have that there's this design, and we call it the missing link. There's a link between the structure and the function. And that missing link is what we deal with every day through the structure. The founder of chiropractic, his daughter-in-law was Mabel Palmer. And Mabel Palmer, she always said, and you say, how do you know this? Well, when we went to Davenport, Iowa, and we were garden boys. We cleaned the garden, and she loved Africans, Australians, and New Zealanders. And so we were her garden boys, and she told us stories about the early chiropractors. And people don't realize that this concept of health, like we focus on health in our clinic. Doesn't matter what you have, you come in, but we focus on health, and we tell patients, if you have a structural flaw, it's going to show up down the road. Doesn't matter what the symptom is. If you have a structural flaw, it's going to show up. And I've adjusted thousands of patients, and I haven't found one who didn't have a structural flaw. They all have structural weaknesses. We all do. And so when I understood this concept of this design, I went, I'm in. Nobody has ever checked my structure for flaws, which we have a thing called multiple subluxations. And you don't just have them. It's funny because in the medical system, you have a head problem where you go to somebody up here in the head, neurologist, brain surgeon, whatever. Then you have an orthopod. Then everything's compartmentalized. And the beautiful thing from our standpoint is we take care of babies all the way through old age. Geriatrics, bring them on. We have a huge geriatric practice. We have patients in their 90s, 96. And a lady just told me yesterday, she said, you're such a blessing. You were open this whole time. And I enjoyed coming. I told my friends the other day that I just loved coming to visit chiropractic. We're so positive. It doesn't matter what comes at us. We've been around 125, 26 years, and we're still doing because our premise is right on. And if the premise is right on, everything else flows down is right on. If that foundation is spot on. I got this from this teacher this morning. She had all the kids had to do this. And when they did that, they quit talking. She didn't tell them to stop talking. She just said this. And then they all raised their hands. It was quite good. At Grandparents' Day in Wisconsin, you've got to go to that. There were hundreds of grandparents. Right. Anyway, this whole concept of design is what we're all about. And the beautiful thing for any prospective student or anybody interested is that we have multiple different ways to check for the structural misalignment. We have soft to hard to everything in between. And we do the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Wow. That's a quantum physics concept. It's even gone past that into systems analysis. And we've got that too. We check all the different systems through the structure. What a concept. I was in second quarter and I went, I'm in. This whole design concept, I'm in. And I love it. It's like I grew up on a wine farm. My father was a medical doctor and a wine farmer. And wine is, he would taste the grapes and say, no, not yet, 3 days. And you go, how do you explain that he knows in 3 days we're going to harvest the grapes? I mean, how do you know 3 days?
All right.
Well, experience. So I always tell the young kids to go to school, and I influence a lot of kids go to school. As Dr. FJ said, you're your own boss. He even bosses me around. Jeez, what about that? You're your own boss. You take this thing as high as you want to go. You want a massive clinic? You go get it. You want a small little mom and pop? You can have that too. You want to be a pediatrician? Well, you have that too. You want to be a geriatrics? You got that too. You want sports medicine? Come on in, baby. My goodness, how many shoulder problems. I adjusted the third baseman for the Diamondbacks when they won the World Series a couple of years ago. Matt Williams, he had shoulder problems, hadn't played third baseman for 6 weeks. They do this, but they never checked his structure. True story. I adjusted him. Next day he played. Now that's the magic we've got going for us. And here's the secret. Nobody knows about it. Very few people know about it, but a lot of people have been to chiropractors. But not all of us tell the story about this design. And that's the magic. It's like going to a design engineer versus going to the laborer. We're engineers. In fact, some of the old timers called ourselves biostructural engineers because that's what we do. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just to keep building context for you guys of this conversation, I asked you about the foundations of chiropractic because that's really where every student needs to start, right? They need to get clear on what chiropractic is, what it isn't, and get strong on their ability to describe it at least. The second stage that they move into, I broke the word innate up into your inner state, which is your inner scientist, thinker, artist, teacher, entrepreneur. And I'm just wondering now if you guys can explore any of those skill sets. It's really about just outlining and identifying the different types of skills that you're expressing as chiropractors in the real world, changing lives through these different skill sets. If you could do your best to just creatively express how you demonstrate the science, philosophy, art, communication, and business as a chiropractor in the real world.
So one thing he told me when I was going to school is, your first year, get into the philosophy. Just read green books. And I've been living it. And he'd given me the story, that's something many, many times over my life. But as a 16-year-old, you're like, nah, I'm not gonna, whatever. But, I got into that in chiropractic school and really just read all the philosophy. And then, he said, get into technique, get into adjusting, because that's what you're going to do every day. But if you don't have the belief, and that's what the philosophy is, then you're going to guess, right? And it's hard in the beginning, even as a young doc, but you have to believe the body's intelligent, to believe the body can heal itself. Or, the patient comes back after one adjustment and they're sore and you're like, oh, I don't know, go see your MD. So the belief is so important. And then he said, get into technique and adjusting and go to masters in the field and get adjusted by them. Don't judge SOT by a student adjustment or upper cervical or Gonstead or whatever you like. Go to the best and get their adjustment. So go to SOT, Gonstead, Diversified, and just see which one really resonates with you. And then your body types matter, right? It's going to be hard if you're 90 pounds to deliver side posture adjustments on a 300-pound person. So, but that I thought was a really good way to to prepare yourself. He also told me, as far as the business side is, he said, get a friend, adjust yourself, each other, and then give each other $50. So you get comfortable accepting for your time, because you enjoy doing it. When you get good, lots of times it happens very quickly. And so a lot of people are very insecure about accepting that and being okay accepting that. And then communication. I joined a Toastmasters group, and the green books were really, if you read One Cause, One Cure, Life Without Fear, you'll be able to communicate to people really well. So much of it, he explains that Barge does such a good job of explaining so simply and easily. And so that I thought was a great way to prepare people for the real world, to the philosophy, the technique, being willing to accept yourself, and then getting good at communicating what you're doing. And then the business side, you can learn business in a weekend. You can go to a marketing seminar and learn about a unique value proposition and expert positioning, but you can't learn to adjust in a weekend. You can't learn to believe in what you're doing in a weekend. That just little by little has to seep in to what you're doing. And of course, the business and the marketing and all that's really important, in learning how to hire people if you run your own, of course. But that, I feel like, is, if you believe in what you do, you can adjust. The rest you can learn, and you'll be prepared. I know when we coach people, the good adjusters it's much easier usually to work with than the people who really have a hard time.
Yeah, well, you don't believe it in the beginning, coming from such a medical background that I came from. And by the way, my wife was a pharmacist, so we were into it. And then my brother had a nervous breakdown, and we went the whole medical route because that's all we knew at that time. And I said to the psychiatrist, I said, well, is that it? I said, what about what caused the imbalance in this chemical makeup? And he said, no, this is it. I said, well, there's got to be something through the system out of alignment, and we're going to have to find it. And that's when we really started. We started with somebody who didn't even know who he was. And he was a chiropractor, by the way. A lot of stress in what we do. So you have to have a vision, because the vision, which is our philosophy, there's a universal intelligence that gives to it all its properties. Now, if your major premise is right, everything that comes off is right on. So there is this vision, and if you get it, like ours is simple, to have to teach the philosophy, science, and art of all things natural in a clinical setting through the philosophy, science, and art of chiropractic. Very simple. But it's clean. And we say we're talking about science. If you have the philosophy, the physiology makes sense. We're physiologists. We're not all up here. Philosophy is not a religion. It's chiropractic is not even. It says so in 1927 is my source. 1927, the textbook on chiropractic. Chiropractic is not a philosophy. It's not a theology. It's not all these things that people think it is. It's just for back pain. It's just for neck. Well, you come to Dr. FJ's office, you come to ours, you'll see it's more than that. And what you do is, when you've got your vision, then you get a mission. And so I'm on a mission. I'm not going to change the world. I've already changed the world by just understanding. It's understanding how the body functions. And it has this missing link called the innate function. We call it 3-in-1. You study the structure. That's what I told FJ to do. Study all these different systems, and then go to the best that's applying these systems or techniques, you want to call it, in practice, and they're doing an incredible job.
And sorry to interrupt, but then if they're in practice, they're turning a profit. So they can do it, because sometimes when you learn in school, you learn for someone who doesn't practice, so it's not practical, right? You take 35 minutes to do this and 45 minutes to do that. If you see someone who's got overhead, who's turning a profit, they've taken that They're delivering something that people enjoy, and they're doing it in a practical way that allows them to turn a profit. So going to someone who's in practice doing this, whatever it is, at the highest level is, I think, was great advice. And I will tell you, the students watching this right now, the most important for business will be where you choose to practice, your location. So get advice. You pick a wrong location, it can be very tough. So just get advice. If you put it $1,000 on your credit card, it doesn't matter. It will be millions of dollars over the life of your career if you pick a good location. And then it comes down to getting new patients.
But you learn that in the street. You learn that you can be a marketing guru and have a horrible practice. I had one he was attracting, literally hundreds and hundreds of new patients, but he didn't believe in chiropractic. And he couldn't take that belief into reality, which means, can you adjust? And that is learned. You learn that one patient at a time, and you have to learn at school. Don't waste your schooling. Yeah. I see so many today, they just go and they think when they graduate and they have not palpated one person.
That's another thing he told me, is palpate someone every day. Put your hands in different people. Just get your hands on people. So
learn to touch people. It's an art. It's an art.
Yeah, it is.
In the beginning, you can't believe how useless you are.
Yeah.
And then you go, yeah, I can feel that. Can you feel that rotation? Can you feel that tightness? Can you feel that swelling? Can you feel that edema? Can you feel that tension in the system? It tightens up when it does that. So, FJ is a wonderful student. And it's a privilege to be his father, but also because he got the big idea. He got what we call the big idea, which, by the way, there are more books written about the big idea, we call it, but it's actually called Gestalt psychology, which means you get the one idea and you go for it. That's your idea. And you put that idea into practice, and you learn as you are moving on. So every year, I believe you should get smarter as a practitioner. And I've been doing this for 42 years. We made all the mistakes, and that's why we help the young kids make all the mistakes.
I'm wondering if we could transition into you just building context for students of what it's like to be in your practice. The third stage is really like being in an apprenticeship model where you're learning from somebody who has 42 years of experience. You're starting to expose yourself to all the ins and outs of being in practice. Can you kind of bring the student into your practice and just share with them what the experience is like for the people that come to your practice, but also how you deliver chiropractic care in your practice?
Yeah, sure. Listen, when a student comes in, you have to find out, first of all, what's their vision. You've got to understand where that's coming from. And I'm good at that. I can find out quickly if you get this or you don't. If you get it, you get it. Now, what skills do you have? Like, I had massive skills coming in on I was the captain of the rugby team and I was the coach of the rugby team. And so I knew how to get organization, but I didn't know myself. See, and a coach needs to know the players. I went to my 50th reunion and they asked, we had a fairly good rugby team. And I was the captain again. And I said, no, we were a very good rugby team. We lost 6 games, but less than 3 points per game. So we lost by 1, we lost by 2, lost by 3, but no more than 3. I said, we were a good team, but we didn't believe in ourselves. See, if you open your practice and you don't believe, I believe you need to go and learn as an intern, not go straight from school, which is all theory. You just take a test and you pass. Then you've got to learn a little application.
It helps for sure.
And Dr. FJ did it incredibly. He went to a lot of my friends who are super successful. And yeah.
Well, the way our day looks like is it's different now. You have to learn your strengths and your talents, and then you create a team around you. So you fill your day with that. So, my day, I show up, I adjust. I analyze a few x-rays. I take a few x-rays. Monday, Wednesday, usually start around 8, finish around 6, have about an hour and a half for lunch, go work out, whatnot. Tuesdays and Thursdays are in the afternoons, analyze a few x-rays in the mornings, meet with my team for usually 30, 45 minutes. Tuesdays, we'll go through some scripting, we'll go through our stats, averages, how everything's going, marketing that's not working, and then work Friday morning. And then I'm off Friday afternoon. You get to set your schedule so you can create it any way you want. I like that. I like that schedule. I had a few associates for a few years. So then I was adjusting Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning. Now they've moved on. So it's just me. So that's how the day looks. You got to figure out what you're good at. If you're super detailed, then you maybe have to get people around you that are a little more creative. If you're not as detailed, like him and I, you're a bigger picture person, then you need to get people around you that are detailed and they'll check the boxes and, dot the I's. And so that is very individual. You got to figure out where your strengths and your talents lie. And little by little, you want to fill your day with what's, I tell everyone, if you can just make your practice so that it feels like play, literally, it's fun. What you're doing every day is fun. You're going to do really well. You're going to do really well for a long time. And then, just making sure the numbers work.
But I mean, today it's managing. You have to learn how to manage. The beautiful thing is we do the staff do the case history, and then we do the consultation. My father taught me that. When you go to somebody and I remember an old timer saying to me, well, you're just like one of those guys in San Francisco who plays the drum on his foot, and he plays the banjo, and then he's got the cymbals on his shoulder, and then he's got a monkey over here, and he doesn't sell a lot of CDs. Okay? But when you're organized and you have a band like the Rolling Stones, see, and they've got longevity, which was my goal. I want to put in the 50 years. I want to be one of those 50-year guys. And I didn't retire like he does. He worked a little bit a year. We work 6 days a week and 7 if we need to. Even today, he won't tell you, but he'll make house calls and he'll go in whenever he needs to. But also, he chooses to coach his children, which I did too. See, so there's times to work and then there's times to play. And work has to be more fun than fun. When you want to go to the office and you enjoy what you're doing and you're good at it and you're good at it. Carry on.
Yeah. Dr. FJ, I want to honor your time. I know you only got 1 minute. If you could just kind of share some details about your guys' company, the services you offer, how people can connect with you, and then I'll let you get off. And maybe, Dr. Fred, if you got a few more minutes, I'd love to just kind of finish the interview with you.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Well, anyways, with the training, we help people, coach them, communication, marketing, all of that. Adjusting, and lots of times one thing about chiropractic, you can feel alone sometimes because you're out there, and if you don't have a group with you, lots of times people feel like you're crazy. Like, how many chiropractors did you know that when COVID came out were not afraid at all? A lot. Not to get political, but anyways, so you can feel a lot of people look at you like you're an alien sometimes, and so it's important for a lot of reasons to connect with people and stay connected, and then getting advice. It's just easier to learn from someone else's mistakes than to make your own. And so you'll still make a few, but if you can get support, and you'll have big decisions, do I need to let this person go? Should I hire this person? Should I do this? Should I do that? What kind of office should I get? And so getting intelligent advice from people who have done it and been doing it successfully for a long time is a huge advantage. And one thing to the students, just quick advice: when you start small. You don't need a gigantic office with 87 tables, and start small, work your way up, keep your overhead down in the beginning, and have a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll see you in a few years. Thanks, Ben. All the best, man.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. FJ. Have a great day.
Yeah, that was good.
So if we're transitioning now, so they've gotten a strong foundation. This is a pre-chiropractic program, by the way. If they've built a strong foundation, they've developed some skill sets, and they've gone to offices and gained experience getting adjusted, observing practices in full flow. Now their next challenge is to start their own pre-chiro club on their college campus or high school campus. And I'm just wondering, from your vantage point, if you had a student that was interested in starting their own pre-chiro club and you wanted them to have as real of an experience of what it's actually like to start a practice in the real world, I'm wondering if you would just give some marching orders or some strategy on how they could orient themselves to starting their own pre-chiro club.
You know what? You first of all, you've got to understand, I was chosen captain of a rugby team when I couldn't even speak the language. Now you go figure that. When I went to Italy to play professional rugby, I couldn't speak Italian, but they chose me as captain. So there must have been something in my voice or my tone that had that authority. So we get this young students to first stand up and say what chiropractic is quickly. Like, what is it? And I always say the toughest patient is one who says, yeah, I understand. I get it. What can you do for my knee? And they don't get it. And the hardest thing to teach students is that person is not going to get it. So stop wasting your time. Give them 3 minutes and say, that's it. This is the principle. We work on structure that leads to function. And we have this design and we look for alterations in the design. What we call subluxation. I find it amazing that students don't even want to hear the word subluxation, but the root word. You want to get to the roots of things? Listen, I went to an all-boys school, one of the greatest high schools in the world, Rondebosch Boys High School. You go check it out. Unbelievable. And we learned a little Latin. Sub means below. Lux means light. Subluxation means below the light, which today we know as energy, vibration, or frequency. So we know that if you could be subluxated in your thoughts because you're not operating at the frequency that you should be. And so we also students, because I lecture sometimes, most of it off campus, but I like those guys more because they're more real. See, sometimes you have to fit into certain parameters, and that's not very creative. And the creative part of chiropractic is the exciting part of chiropractic. Your practice must be creative and it must be very stimulating, which for me, I haven't lost the juice in 45 years since that, when I heard that first chiropractor tell me the story. And then you go to, you tell them the fundamentals. The fundamentals is, can you stand up in a crowd and tell me what chiropractic is right now? And most of them cannot. And I go, you spend $300,000 to $400,000, if not more, with undergraduate, and you don't know what we're going to do. We've got a problem. And it's not the patients, by the way, because there was a guy down the road from me. There'd been multiple guys down the road from me over the years, and some of them don't know what's going on in chiropractic. And so they learn marketing or they learn sales technique. Well, I don't sell. You don't have to sell. When you can produce results, there's people in the stands. And I used to say to my Italian directors, are there more people watching us in the stands than there were when I arrived? Yes. What does that mean? There's some excitement here. And when the doctor has that excitement, which comes through the vision, mission, and the purpose. You have to have what's the purpose? We tell our patients, the purpose of your visit today is to evaluate you for your structure. And they all go psychological. So they go, well, there's nothing wrong with my neck. Oh, I don't want my neck snapped around. And I go, I'm actually not palpating your neck. I'm palpating your cranium, your occiput. Well, there's nothing wrong with my left shoulder. It's in my right shoulder. Yeah, but did you know that the right shoulder, when it's inflamed, usually comes from overuse? And that overuse causes the inflammation. But the problem usually is the opposite extremity. And if I say, fix my left knee. Well, let's check your right one first. And let's see. But those are advanced techniques that you learn over time.
No, for sure. And nothing can replace experience. But I just think that hearing from you and just soaking it up before they go to chiropractic school, it could really help develop a conviction, a clarity, a certainty of purpose, of communication, just, giving them something like what you just shared, and then having students go and practice talking to one another, I think is just invaluable before they even get to chiropractic school, right? Because as you mentioned, it's an expensive investment, not only of money, but also time, energy. I mean, you have to know that this is the path you want to take and that you're aligned with that path. So I'm just curious, if a student has decided they wanted to go to chiropractic school and they're hearing you right now, and they have 3 to 6 months to invest in a creative independent study project, can you creatively develop a project for them? Maybe it's a research project, maybe it's you tasking them to go explore or ponder specific questions. But I'm just curious, if you had a student that had gotten experience and studied philosophy and developed some skills, and now they just have 3 to 6 months before they go to chiropractic school, what would you have them maybe go and do?
I tell them, first of all, which is what I tell them, stop studying philosophy. Chiropractic is not about Plato, Socrates. That is not what chiropractic philosophy is. And that is from our green book, that all these greats who came out of our profession. It says it right there. It is not in the green book. You have a copy of it. Stevenson's textbook. I print the page out to tell them this is what the missing link is. Now, learn some kinesiology. You can do that right there at university. Learn some biomechanics. You can do that right there at university. Now, we go a step further. We go and tell them to take a behavioral test. Learn who you are. So when our clients come to us, we want to know who they are. So we do a little test, 36 questions. Boom, that's who you are. And what's funny, when they do that, we had one who was studying computer. That's the future, computer. I said, all the kids are going for computer. My dad was a medical doctor and a wine farmer. And he said to me, Frederick, get into healthcare. I'm going to tell anybody who's watching, get into healthcare. And that was 50 years ago. And my dad was a medical doctor. You know, the funny thing is, he always said, those people, those chiropractors don't know what they're doing. In the end, he told me, Freddie, you won't believe it. I've been to a chiropractor. I went, you son of a gun. God, all these years, and you said, no. They a bunch of this and that. And I go, you know what? If you guys got everybody well, I wouldn't have a business. So don't even go there with me. So I tell them, you've got to get the passion. And the passion is, do you want to own your own business? Because once you leave school, you're on your own. The beautiful thing about our training company, we have clients who have been with me for over 30 years. Now, you got to train with the same guy for 30 years. I go, yeah, because this thing evolves. What do you think of, like Dr. FJ, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Should I invest in this building? Should I buy this? What should I do here? It's complicated today. It's way more complicated than it was. And all the kids are taking marketing and they all want the biggest YouTube channel. I don't want that. I know who I am. I am a chiropractor and I apply the adjustment, and I'm old school like that. But you know one thing? Old school's winning. Old school's. I got more young kids we've affected because I believe in the fraternity and the sorority system. An all boy hardcore. I'm the one who raised money for the sorority because they were having a hard time with money. I said, okay, the boys will put the money in. Let's go. And in 5 minutes, we raised over $1,000 for them. And they went, how did we do that? Ask that guy over there. That's me. Because I go, if you can't, you want to help everybody. I don't care who you are. I had the first AIDS patient in Arizona. He told me that. He said nobody would take me. And I said, come on in. And he drove from Tucson, Arizona to Phoenix, Arizona. And the first thing I did was come here and give me a hug. And he said, my goodness, everybody's petrified of me. And I go, they don't get physiology. They don't get it. Come over here. And he drove from Tucson, 2 hours from Tucson to Phoenix, 3 times a week, not forever. And he was so thankful because here's the key. There's no bus that you can jump on to get anything because there's nothing from the outside in. You manifest from the inside out. So it doesn't matter what the symptom is. It came from the inside. You became susceptible to whatever the name is. It's the same name. And are you into that? Well, the students I send are committed from day one, and then they have to learn something. The most important is public speaking. You have to learn to talk to people. You have to learn. That's called communication skills. You have to learn how to use your hands. And I got a broken hand. I love this finger of mine. You know why? Because when patient says, well, my orthopod says bone on bone. And I go, no, this is bone on bone. You see that doesn't move here in the joint? Because there's no joint. Bone on bone, you're still moving. If you're walking, you're still moving. There's cartilage in there. Doesn't matter how thin it is. It's not bone on bone. The next step, they want to operate on you. So that game's on. If you want to do that, don't come into chiropractic because it'll be frustrating because you're not going to be a surgeon. Okay. But here's the beauty. You can be a structural, you can be an orthopedic chiropractic. And I tell them, what do you want to be? A lot of them want to be pediatrics. I still don't get it. I still don't get it, even though I adjusted my own children when they were born. Why? Because you have to get the mother to bring the child to a pediatric. Why? Because it's complicated, but we don't have insurance for babies. So it becomes down to economics. But geriatrics. And I love old people. I'm starting to become one myself. I love old grannies. I talk to them and they come in there, and some of them have been me a short time, some have been a long time. I like everything in between. You don't have to come to me the rest of your life. I promise you, 12 visits and we're in. Get it? If you can't help somebody in 12 minutes, you're either trying to sell them some other package, but if you don't get at least 20% improvement, the research says you'll get 50% on 12 visits, which means about 30 days. Wow. 92% effectiveness. Holy cow. Get into this game, bro. And if I've learned anything through this COVID thing, we were open the whole time because we're essential. Nobody else is. I want to go be a physical therapy. You go. You're not essential. They shut them down in our office, in our center. There was a fitness center. They shut them down. There's a hamburger joint shut down. Everything except the grocery store and that little cocky little, that Schofield, he's open. I want to go see my chiropractor. He's essential to my life. I love that. A lady told me that. 85 years old. She said, you know what you gave me? You gave me faith. I had to get up in the morning. I used to get dressed. And I had to actually make a commitment to be there at 10 o'clock. And I want to thank you. You forced me to move. Now, just doing that, movement is the key. So I'm into exercise, movement. So what channel? I tell the young students everything in the beginning. Don't picks. I had one, I'll never forget. He said, I want to be a sports medicine chiropractor. I said, that's great, go for it. But 5 years later, he came back, I don't want to be a sports medicine chiropractor. I could have told you, but you didn't ask for me. Why? Because you see, there's an orthopod who runs the sports medicine on the big team. I know, I trained the first chiropractor to be on a professional football team. And he had to get permission. I'm not playing that game. You're done. And I've had a lot of professional athletes. I used to adjust on the LPGA, see? And the women's golf, because women aren't supposed to be one-dimensional and just hit. And so they have a lot of structural problems. See? And so you have to learn who you are. But the most important I tell students is, can you talk in front of people? Can you palpate? Can you use your hands? Thank God there's no Zoom adjustment. No Zoom adjustment, bro. You got to come in my office and feel my hands. And once you do that, you'll understand. And that's the most important, public speaking. And then, can you use your hands? My father taught me the greatest lesson. Take a case history, which means write things down. And in documentation, if it's not written, it doesn't exist. You're not their friend, but you're a professional chiropractor. And then you consult. Doctors consult. Nurses take case histories. So you differentiate, but that's down the road. You have to learn to speak, and you have to know your vision. What do you want to do with this thing? And the earlier you start, the more we can fill in the gaps. And that's what our training company, we have students in first quarters, and we have other students who, as I said, have been with us for 30 years, and everybody in between. Why? Because you can never not learn fundamental or basics. The basics of health care in a chiropractic office are all the same. You have to learn how to smile. You have to enjoy your work. Your hands have to learn how to smile. Your hands. People have to feel good. If they come in and say, you hurt me, you did not practice every day palpating somebody at school. You thought there were more important things to do. You can read the green books, and I recommend them. But Barger's books are the best. And Fred Barger was a personal friend of mine. In fact, he had dinner with me the eve of the centennial celebration. So we go back a long way. I got a lot of old-time chiropractors who were friends of mine because I loved their humility. See, the one thing I've learned is you can get big, but it doesn't matter how big you get. Are you humble? Are you inspirational? Do you have good information? I don't want to be a salesman. If I did, I'd go sell something. I couldn't sell stuff that I didn't believe in. And I don't believe in most of the stuff. So if you have a little twist, welcome to chiropractic. If you think like my mother thinks I'm off my rocker, but she's 96, she'll go to a chiropractor.
Thank you for that, Dr. Fred. I appreciate it. I'm curious, historically you hear that chiropractic is a calling, that you don't find chiropractic, chiropractic finds you. I'm curious your thoughts on this pre-chiropractic project and really trying to insert and establish a presence of chiropractic in the high schools, in the colleges, really trying to actually create a pathway, a career path, shall we call it, just because that's what modern education is describing, these tracks that students can take when they're deciding on what major they want to study. I'm curious, from your vantage point, there's really very few chiropractors in the health centers of college campuses. You could argue that the environments of college campuses is like the first time you're moving out of your family's house, you're living in a dorm, nobody's watching you, so you could just live however you want to live, and there's really no instruction manuals, so it's very toxic and it's deficient of students that are inspiring others to live healthy. So I'm just curious, like, if we had, shall we say, a team of pre-chiropractic students on a college campus, the shift that it could make or transform that college campus in different ways. What do you think about this? I mean, I was doing some math, and it appears as though there's about 2,000 incoming chiropractic students to all the different schools each year, maybe 3,000, shall we say. What if we were to 10 times that with students that were principled on purpose, passionate, focused, and we had 30,000 incoming students because we proactively and intentionally looked at that as the primary subluxation, which is students coming into the programs without any clarity of what chiropractic is or understanding of what they need to do to become chiropractors.
Yeah, it's a huge battle. First of all, in practice, 42 years, had the biggest practice in the world, saw thousands of patients in a week. It's a huge battle because we have to get into the preschools. So we've got to go and get the little ones. And when that mother sees a baby who's got a fever after an adjustment, I don't want to get into symptoms, but all that childhood stuff. Like I had this child who came in with this torticollis. Torticollis means stiff neck. I had stiff necks when I was a baby, as a baby. And my hearing on this side is weaker than this side. But this is the side I had ear infections. And I was a bedwetter. I've had, I want to say, thousands of bedwetters have come to me. But until we get into that market, there's a huge drop-off in practice. When kids get into high school, they tend to drop off their appointments. Unless I taught them the philosophy of get your structure and you'll be a better sports person. You'll play the piano better. You watch piano, when they do this, their heads are always moving. I wonder why their head's moving. The fingers move. If you don't see a concert pianist just doing this and they're stiff, they flow with it. Their hands move and they go in and their whole body is experiencing the piano. So unless we get the little ones, there's a drop-off in high school. There are no nurses that send me anybody. So the nurses are into the game, whatever game you want to call it. It gets worse in college. ASU, the biggest university, 58,000, not a chiropractor seen on campus. Why? Because they got it. They got the, I don't want to say what it is, but it's locked in. And I believe the biggest problem that nobody addresses, insurance. If they didn't pay, if they paid what we were worth, wow. And college people, I had one guy, I said, you can't charge me that. I don't have that kind of money. And you can't. But I go through it different. I go through the fraternities. And then they get, but it doesn't happen all the time. I'll get one kid who's fired up and he'll get everybody else coming to get checked. And then when he graduates, nobody else. So unless we get them early, and we've got to get more successful chiropractors who can take the time out of their practice, like me, and go visit and talk to people and go out and stimulate, but not say, well, you're going to be an ADD chiropractor. We don't want that. We don't care about that. We want you to get the concept so that you do it in your personal life, and then the game is on. I just want to tell you a sad story. I had the student come to me, and he suddenly, his father's a chiropractor, came to me, and he had hives all over his body. So he's scratching himself, and he's got all this all over his body. And I said, what the hell is stressing you out? And he goes, I don't like to be here. I said, well, go home. Well, I can't go home. Well, let's finish the semester. I mean, I've known this kid like 3 months, okay? And I'm going, listen, we've got to stop this. You've got to stop being a victim. Now, let's learn what we need to learn. Well, the situation didn't warrant for that. He wouldn't make those choices. End of the story. After 6 months, his second semester, or his first semester, I said, you pack your bags, you go home. And he went home. Guess what? He's happier. He hasn't broken out. And I just found out he's going to chiropractic school. How about that? But the situation he was in was all stressed out, and you know what the nurses are going to do. They're not going to. They don't buy our concept at all. They just, it's not even on their plate, not even a sliver. And until we get those young babies, parents understanding.
If I was just going to suggest that we look at this vision that I crafted to insert a pre-chiropractic program which changes the structure. If we look at the structure, there really is no structure in place to usher students in a structured way so that they can function better as chiropractic students. Yes. And if we look at the structure on college campuses, it's absent of any presence of chiropractic philosophy. The educational pathway isn't talked about by the guidance counselors. There's no teachers mentioning it in kinesiology, even though there's classes that literally are talking about biomechanics of the spine and human performance and neurology in the context of athletic performance. Chiropractic is never mentioned. You don't really even hear about it in the neuroscience track. I'm just saying to you, as somebody who's a big thinker, somebody who's had the biggest practice in the world, somebody who's been in the profession for 42 years, is this a question that needs to be focused on and explored? What would happen if pre-chiropractic existed? What would happen if pre-chiropractic was actually a field of study? I'm just curious if you could really respond directly to that. Because I understand the preschoolers are of utmost importance, but if we're just focused on the high school and college students and career changers who didn't find passion in the profession that they initially chose and they were looking still, maybe they're 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60, how can we position chiropractic as a field of study in a structured way that's congruent and in alignment with the original premises and the original roots of chiropractic in today's world? And what would that mean for the profession moving forward to have everybody coming in, no matter what school they go to, having shared experiences, having connected with one another, having known that everyone else going into the profession has gone through the same the same types of training that they've gone through?
Yeah. I mean, you won't believe it. I mean, the Life West recruiter was just in my office the other day. So, I mean, you're in the right thing. But I have to correct you. The school you go to makes all the difference in the world. Because some schools, even though...
Not to interrupt you, but given the current structure, yes, I agree with you 110%. Yes. I'm speaking about if there was a new structure where, yes, before you go to chiropractic school, you were able to develop a strong foundation for what it means to be a chiropractor. It would matter. Would you agree with me, yes or no, that it would matter a little bit less because you would be able to differentiate yourself what is chiropractic and what isn't chiropractic, and you would have a foundation to stand on?
Yeah, you can do it. And listen, I commend you on your journey. It's fantastic.
And I love being in disagreement. I want you to say, I want to correct you, or I want you to say no, or you think of it differently, because contrast clarifies, or conflicts clarify, right?
Yeah, I'm all over that. You don't practice for 42 years if you don't accept everybody's point of view. I'm adaptable. I can accept your point of view. But there are certain schools that dog on chiropractic, even though they say that they're a chiropractic school, and that's going to be very difficult to change. But you're doing a hell of a job. I mean, to get the students before they choose a chiropractic campus, which I think is important. You can't tell me that, USC and UCLA are the same. Well, it depends on what you're going to learn. One's better than the other. They have uniqueness. And that's that unique factor, which is what I tell them. You have to choose what you want to get into. And it sounds great. We're going to teach you how to be a massage therapist. We're going to teach you how to be an acupuncturist. We're going to teach you how to be a chiropractor. And we're going to teach you everything. Well, yeah, but if you can't be master of everything. So I think you're doing a hell of a job, and keep doing it, man. And just open those students to the question. The trouble is the financial burden is always on the students in chiropractic. And it's a hell of a problem for our profession. And if you can correct it, I'll help you any way I can.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you showing up for the students today, Dr. Fred. I really do. And I just enjoy connecting with people such as yourself. I've probably talked to about 100 people who have been in the profession over 30 years at this point on this same podcast. And I really am still yearning and searching to have these dialogues of like, why has pre-chiropractic never been a thing that chiropractors have focused on enough to really bring forward? I don't know if you're aware of this hashtag concept in technology, but right now on this TikTok platform, there's 18.1 billion views for hashtag chiropractor and 17.9 billion views for hashtag medicine. So we actually have more views on this platform, yet the hashtag pre-med has 7 million views on it, and hashtag pre-chiro or pre-chiropractic has less than 300. And so it's just, as you know, like you go to a high school and there's only nurses and they're not on those same wavelength or vibration or frequency or tone that chiropractic is. And therefore, these educational pathways are being, the seed is planted right there in the mind of the young student who goes to the nurse and hears their perspective and is indoctrinated by their philosophy. We really have to start to tease out this life cycle of how somebody goes through life and where they actually find chiropractic.
Well, it's the same as somebody who decides they're going to eat correctly. Okay? You can go to any bookstore and you're going to see every different, from keto to paleo, everything in between. And there's always somebody who's going to validate you. So the same in chiropractic. If that student, you can't believe how many students have thanked me because then they once they got the message, once they got about this, take care of yourself. It's personal responsibility. And argue. See, I don't mind anybody arguing. You don't have to buy what I buy. I just know there's a universal intelligence and continually gives me all my properties and actions and keeps me going. Excuse me. And my kids, I got two, they all involved in our family business. And that's what I love about chiropractic. It runs in families. And I love that concept. And I tell, especially foreigners, especially immigrants who start with nothing like I did as a janitor. But if you get that vision, boom, game on. And I have clients all over the world, Hong Kong, they're doing incredible. Why? Because people are waking up through this. I don't even want to call it COVID. It doesn't matter. It's an awakening. And what is a blessing to me and all these prospective students is we're right on. And we're not afraid of anything. Bring it on, baby. Bring it on. Whatever you got, bring it on. Because I know who's paying those nurses to give whatever or to sell that package. I know who's paying. Whereas if you and I go and do it, it comes out of our own pocket. So we have a tendency to be more truthful, to be more honest. My office is based on 3 things: integrity, honesty, and trust. I've never lied to one patient. If I can help you, I'll let you know. If I can't help you, I'll let you know. But I will find somebody in the alternative movement. I don't even like to be called alternative because we should be mainstream. But we know who COVID has shown who runs the media and who runs the money. And we give all this billions and billions of dollars to somebody we don't know anything about. And then in my center, I got homeless people like crazy. And you just go, what's going on here? I'm an immigrant. What's going on here? Well, I'll never forget one little story. This homeless guy in Chicago, we're downtown Chicago, and he drops his bag, and 5, I swear not, I kid you not, 5 bottles of medications roll out. I know because I looked for my camera and I wanted to take a photograph of the 5 meds and go, this is what a homeless is. They never address that they are seriously dysfunctional. And it's not just homeless. It's a huge problem in our society. What you're saying is we have shut this alternative movement down. We have. And they're trying to get the same guys who brought us COVID are going to infiltrate. That's their game. It's written down. They're in the fertilizer game. They're in the pesticides game. They're in the herbicides game. I didn't even know what an herbicide was. I thought it was herbs. No. You from San Francisco, you know there's the...
No, hold on. I'm from New York, but I'm in the Bay Area. And yeah, no, I hear you. It's a machine. It's a machine. It's a system. It's a structure. It's systemic. And the education structure doesn't have any presence of chiropractic except for these little chiropractic schools that all function independently of one another. I mean, even the so-called vitalistic, principled, pure chiropractic schools, none of them want to collaborate with one another as far as like, how do we work together to strengthen our profession and build connection? Our profession is about this connection between mind and heart and brain and body, and yet we are not connected in any way, shape, or form. So I just want to thank you for coming on this having this conversation with me. My goal or my aim with this project is really to touch on all the points, all the different areas of this structure we call the chiropractic profession, and have them all be connected in one place. Whether they want to spend any energy connecting with one another or collaborating with one another, that's not my point. My point is the students need to know who you are. They need to hear from Dr. Fred in high school and college and chiropractic school. And then when they get out and practice, and most of them will never even find you unless one of their mentors tells them about you, or unless you go out of your way to market to the chiropractic students, which I'm sure you're not spending that much energy on.
No, I mean, I'm a professional chiropractor and this is what I do. And our practice, listen, my patients are fearful when I leave. They just say, Doc, you've got to come back. You can't, I'm 68 years old now. We're not playing games anymore. And it's not like hurrah, hurrah, get excited. I have been excited for a long time. And I just have to honor you. We've been going for an hour and it feels like, 5 minutes. And it's a wonderful job you're doing. And I hope the students that watch it go in and get connected. Get that innate connection, that missing link between the structure and the function. And learn. There's so much you can learn. You won't believe what I tell kids who go to school, what to learn. Take a creative writing course. Take a public speaking course. Take an organizational management course. How do you organize yourself? Self-management. They're all there. Organizational management. It's all there. You can take it. And what a pleasure to learn that stuff before you even get into chiropractic school. And you know how to be organized. I always tell them when they're struggling, they sometimes come to me, the students, and say, I'm not doing well in school. And I go, you're not organized. You have not said, I'm going to study from this point to this point. And I'm going to do, we found, but I used to teach super learning. And you learn 20-minute segments. And then you won't believe, put a little bit of Baroque music on. You may not even like it, but it harmonizes the brain and the body together. The music does it. And you retain 75% more doing the same that you did without the music. Unbelievable. Who wouldn't do it? Who wouldn't do it? And the kids today are exposed to such an array of professions. The only thing they have to be careful, I tell them, be careful of the professor who says, this is the way and it's the only way. Get out of that class, find how many, whatever they're instructing them to do is paying them to say that. Now you say, well, this is the future. We need more of this. And okay, where do I get a job when I graduate? Where do I go? What can I use this for? Okay, I'm gonna learn how to run a greenhouse. How many jobs available for greenhousing? And all I'm going to tell your students who are watching this, there is a market right now in this game because people are hurting more. There is such a massive market all over. My clients in Europe are booming. My clients in Africa are booming. You cannot believe I have a podcast next with my client in Africa. They're booming. You can't get into them. Hong Kong, Australia, it's everywhere. But you have to have that vision, and we're open. We're open. That's the funny thing. I'm the most flexible. I don't have one way. This is the way. I just know I'm not going to your little doctor who doesn't know anything about what I do. I'm not going to your little dentist. They showed me the medications they give people. I went, holy cow. Holy mackerel. 2 pages of both sides all the way down. And I went, you're in the drug game. That's all it is. You're in the meds game. So that's who's paying their account.
And just, can you speak really, as we wrap up, I want to just thank you so much for your time. I know this has gone longer than you expected, but just from your experience, when you share the chiropractic message with somebody, 9 times out of 10, it makes sense to them. They get it. They're attracted to it. They're not repelled by it. If you were to stand in a classroom of 250 to 600 students at California Berkeley's basic chemistry class or basic intro to human movement class and talk about chiropractic for an hour, I would venture to guess 90+% of those students would have moved chiropractic up their list of potential career pathways to the top 5 within 1 hour.
Doc, this funny thing is I wouldn't mention I'm a chiropractor first because there's this magnetic door that just drops. And if you can just disintegrate that door and get that ear open, then are they open to listen? I was so open to listen because of my experience in injuring myself. I was in a coma for 3 days and they just wanted to pump me full, and that's enough. That's enough now. And my father and I at that stage weren't getting along too well. He said, you do your own thing. Okay. So you want me to become my own doctor? Yes. All right. That's what I'm going to do. And the first thing was I was going to get adjusted by a chiropractor. First thing on my list. And then
I'm just going to ask you, if you're not calling yourself a chiropractor, what are you calling yourself? And I'm also really trying to make a point that if we're starting a new school in Hong Kong or Malaysia or Indonesia called
Washington
chiropractic,
State.
Huh?
It is a chiropractic school. We're calling ourselves doctors of chiropractic. We are chiropractors. They don't call me Dr. Fred for nothing. And I'm telling you, some of them don't want to call me that. And I go, I'm a doctor of chiropractic. You can be a doctor of law. You can be a doctor of literature. I just happen to be a doctor of chiropractic. But in my introduction to students speaking like this, I have found there are some of them that are not open to it. And then at the end, I say, and what profession do you think I am? And it's the only profession that has a philosophy, science, and art. Our science is 125, 26 years, and it's only getting better. Why? Because the quantum physics opened the whole world. The whole Tesla concept of this frequency, vibration, and energy just opens chiropractic. And the first one who brought it into chiropractic was B.J. Palmer. The second one who did it was I.N. Toughness. And Dr. Toughness was brilliant. He was on another level. And I kind of trained with those guys who said, it's your frequency, Fred. It's your frequency. So words, I remember a patient coming in just in the 80s and said, it's semantics. And I go, that's right. That's exactly what it is, semantics. So I say I'm a doctor of medicine versus a doctor of chiropractic, and the two, they do not mesh. I'm sorry, I disagree who say, well, there's a place. What place? What place? Well, what happens if it's a trauma? Well, where do you think you go? In our profession, we actually have, we're told what to say. Don't cross the yellow line. Know the limitations of structural instability. Know those limitations. And then stick to your knitting. Stick to the fundamentals. That's why I've never crossed the line. Reggie Gold called me the straightest chiropractor he ever met. Why? Because to this day, I don't treat symptoms. I acknowledge them, but I don't treat them. We don't treat anything. I hate the word. Why? Because you're not sick. You're out of line.
On that note, would you say that a doctor of chiropractic is more in the therapeutic model and the treatment model, whereas a chiropractor is non-therapeutic in their nature?
Totally. We are not therapeutic. You don't come to my office to do rehab. First of all, it's not essential. I love it, man. This essential thing has put us on another planet. You cannot believe how busy our doctors are getting because we're essential. You can't give a Zoom or a TikTok adjustment. You cannot do it. You have to have hands. And those that don't use their hands, I believe, don't understand chiropractic, which comes from chiros, hands, healing by hand. Even activator guys have to use their hands to use the activator. So
I'm going to let you get up out of here. I know we could go for hours, but I want to honor your time. Thank you, Dr. Fred. I will post connections to you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Cheers.